going all in is probably your best bet because you're going to have a completely different mindset when failure is not an option. I'm a big fan of going all in and doing everything humanly possible to make sure that the plan gets executed the way you want it to.
Hello, 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 and welcome back to the My Future Business Show. I hope you're doing wonderfully well. It is always nice to have you with us, joining us as we speak to amazing people doing incredible things in their businesses. And with that being said, on today's show, I have the pleasure of welcoming speaker, author, and entrepreneur Steven Pivnik. Welcome to the show, Steven.
Thanks, Rick. Really looking forward to our conversation.
Yes, absolutely. Now, you and I are going to be talking about your book, Built to Finish, and how to go the distance in business and life to achieve your personal and professional goals. Now, on the surface, that doesn't seem like too much to unpack, but I'm pretty sure that we're going to have a really good conversation about that. But first things first, where are you calling in from today?
So I live in Manhattan currently, New York City.
Fantastic. Now, from what I understood, you transit between Manhattan and New Jersey, is that correct?
We used to. So after I sold my last company, we decided to experiment a little bit with Manhattan. So we went back and forth for a bit, and we decided to make it our full-time home. So now, no more going back and forth, other than to visit my daughter.
Yes, fantastic. Now, well, tell me, what's the thing you love the most about where you're living at the moment?
I mean, it's New York City, right? It's
Of
it's one
course,
of
New
the
York,
best
New York.
cities in the. So everything that's positive about New York, I totally love. Just the ability to go downstairs and to do whatever your heart desires, from food to entertainment to nature. Central Park is, yes, there's a lot of nature in Manhattan.
It's
So
surprising,
literally,
because there's lots of people that don't really realize that not only in the center there's a lot of wildlife, but on the perimeter there's obviously a lot of suburban type environments as well. Do you find yourself ever adventuring sort of outwards from the center?
oh, there's a lot. I mean, I run and bike a lot as part of my endurance hobbies. So I'm always venturing to the entire perimeter of New York City and then across both rivers. And so yes, there's a lot of that, and it's continuously growing. So it's not just the concrete jungle.
Well, when you say, you go across the bridges, we have a fairly major bridge system here as well, because there's clearly lots of water around. But do you find, is it difficult to transit from one side of the bridges there? Is there much congestion to get in and out?
My preferred mode of transportation is either on my legs or on my bicycle.
Yep.
So if you use those two, there's zero congestion. But if we have to get behind the wheel of a car, there's, depending on the time of day you go, there's a lot of congestion.
So I know that you're an Ironman, a triathlete, and marathon runner. When I heard that, I just got tired thinking about it. Now, tell us how that all came to be. Did that come from an early age? Is that where the passion came from? Tell us a little bit about
Now,
that.
interesting. I did not grow up athletic in any way, shape, or form. We were an immigrant family. My parents barely had any money to get by to begin with. They didn't have any extra money to put me into baseball, basketball, or football at all.
Yeah.
So zero. I had zero athletic background growing up, other than skiing. I was an avid skier, so I was active from that perspective.
Are you
Triathlon
talking
came
water
around.
skiing or snow skiing?
Snow skiing,
Oh, right.
snow
Yep.
skiing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was my only form of physical activity, snow skiing, growing up. And when I turned 40, I consider this my midlife crisis. I started realizing that I've got some really bad genes in me because my grandparents and my parents, I like to say, they had it all. They had high blood pressure, diabetes, cancer, strokes, you name it, they had it.
Oh,
Therefore, I started saying to myself, if God forbid, I get any of these things, I want to be in the best shape possible to fight it. And while that was weighing heavily on me, I found out that somebody at work had just completed a triathlon, a short distance. It's called a sprint triathlon. So I was shocked. I'm like, how does a mere mortal participate in this elite Olympic event called triathlon? I need to find out more. And on Monday, I called her into my office. I think I probably scared her. And I said, please tell me how you did a triathlon. And I came to learn that anybody can sign up for a race of multiple distances. You train for it and you compete. And I did. So when I crossed that finish line shortly after my 40th birthday, I just became enamored with the sport. that night I learned about this thing called Ironman, which is one of the longest distances. And I said somehow, and I saw these videos for the World Championship in Kona, Hawaii. And I said, someday, somehow, I'm gonna get to the Ironman World Championship in Kona. And that's when this entire craze was born for me.
Yeah, wow, great feedback. Thank you. Now, I've been skipping through your feeds and I noticed your bike. I don't know if you've got a new one since then, but you've got a Trek. That's a Trek brand race bike. They seem to me like they'd be quite costly. How much would you pay for a bike like that?
Yeah, so the sport of triathlon is incredibly expensive. I mean, I used to think that hockey was expensive because I dabbled in that a little bit, and everybody says hockey is one of the most expensive sports from a gear perspective. Triathlon makes hockey seem cheap. A bicycle, if you're going to get a decent bicycle, you're going to spend anywhere from probably $3,000 on the low end, maybe $2,000 on the low end, to $22,000 on the high end.
That's incredible. Now, I know that you also get involved with something called mountaineering. Tell us a little bit about that. What's that all about?
Right. So a lot of people think it's mountain climbing. Mountain climbing, I think, or rock climbing is when you're literally going straight up. You're going, straight up a rock face. Mountaineering is when you're trekking or hiking up a mountain. So, for instance, the way you get up Everest is mountaineering. The way you get up all the other seven summits is mountaineering. There, except for a couple of small little spots, you're rarely going straight up. You're hiking,
Yeah.
but you're hiking in some extreme weather,
Oh, yeah.
extreme environments, and it's super super technical. But you're not going straight up. So I guess that's the difference between rock climbing and mountaineering.
So, what's the highest peak that you've made thus far, and what do you want to do?
So the highest so far has been Mount Aconcagua in South America. It's
Mhm.
in Argentina, right outside of Mendoza. It's 23,000 feet. It's Mount Everest's first cousin. So outside the Himalayas, Mount Aconcagua is the highest peak. And obviously, the holy grail in the mountaineering world is Mount Everest. And I literally, this is hot off the press. I haven't even blogged about this yet. I just got accepted to a Mount Everest expedition, which I'm going
Oh,
on in May of next year.
oh, wow. My heart just started pumping on behalf of you. That's incredible news. Congratulations. That's going to
Yeah.
be a journey of a lifetime, I'm sure. But it gets me to thinking, Stephen, about, food, nutrition, and how much you must have to look after yourself in that regards. Tell us a little bit about your diet.
Oh yeah, self-care is very, very important when you're on a mountain. So the good news is that actually the fun news about self-care on a mountain is it is impossible to take in more calories than you're going to burn. As an example, when I went to Mount McKinley in Alaska, we had to bring 22 pounds of junk food per climber
Oh, wow.
on the trip. Snickers bars, other candy bars, um, every single form of junk food that everybody will tell you to stay away from. You're welcome to bring because your body needs that instant access to sugar and calories
Yes.
because you can't put enough into your body because it's so cold and the exertion is so extreme.
Wow,
So
that's incredible.
yeah, it's actually that's one of the many many fun things about like living on a mountain and doing these mountaineering adventures is you really get to eat like a kid again.
So when you're not climbing mountains and that sort of things, what is your favorite food down at base level?
Yeah, yeah. At a base, I mean, my favorite food is probably steak. I mean, I went through every single diet conceivable to try to optimize performance.
Yep.
I tried vegan for a full year, then I went to vegetarian for another year, then I tried a pescatarian only. Long story short, I'm pretty much back to where I was in eating, not limiting myself to anything, but definitely just watching the quantity, and more importantly, the quality of
Yeah,
the food.
absolutely. So do you give yourself permission to have downtimes? And if you do you have anything that you enjoy doing? For me, I occasionally like watching a movie. What's your thing?
I see that's the most common misconception is people think that I don't watch Netflix or I don't go on social media. And my answer to them is, well, guess what? When you're on a stationary bike for 5 hours at a time, Netflix works just fine. Wh- when you're on a treadmill and you want to listen to an audiobook, or if you want to, scroll around some social media, it works just fine. So I really don't have to, limit myself from some of the what society may consider with waste of times just because I'm training. Obviously, it's harder to do that when swimming, but the good news is there's plenty of waterproof headsets available, and you can
Yeah.
listen to podcasts while swimming.
You know what? The fact that you keep saying the good news, I love the fact that you have this mindset that that life is full of good news, and it makes me think about the importance of mindset and what you expose yourself. How important is it to be measured in terms of, say, exposing yourself to good news on social media and the likes?
Oh, it's incredibly important. I recently had a self-imposed training camp because I was training for this race, which I can get into if you want. It makes Ironman look easy.
Yep.
It's a 3-day triathlon, and I got into this morning routine which I wanted to experiment with. Um, and it all involved around not turning my phone on until approximately 9 a.m. So whatever I needed to do first, my cold shower, which I'm a huge fan of, ice showers,
Yep.
meditation, another huge fan of meditation, morning stretching, huge fan of morning stretching, and then breakfast, right? The proper breakfast for the day, all before turning the phone on. And I can't tell you how much of a different mindset that triggered for me, because you're basically in for bad news, right? If you're gonna turn your phone on, you're gonna get bogged down with emails that require something of you. There's nothing great on the news. It's only sensational bad things that are on the news.
Yep.
And social media is going to serve you up things that you don't have that you probably want, and you're going to get upset.
That's true.
So there's no better way to put yourself into a positive mindset to start the day than to keep your phone off until you finish like what's most important to you.
Now tell me, do you get up early in the morning?
And my body, I don't know how I programmed it, but it's pretty much programmed to get up at 6 a.m. sharp, no alarm clock,
No, no question
no matter when
asked.
I go to sleep.
Now, you talked about having junk food before, and it makes me think about somebody who's a high performer like yourself. Do you ever drink coffee and things like that?
I personally don't like coffee, so
No.
I stopped drinking coffee many years ago. So I
Yep.
don't really need caffeine to get through the day. But because I don't drink coffee, it helps me on the race course. One of my go-to drinks is Red Bull, especially during like the later courses of a
Ah.
race.
Yep.
Red Bull and Mountain Dew are my savior.
Yeah. Now, tell me, you touched on audiobooks a little earlier, Stephen. I'm wondering, not only that, what are you listening to at the moment for motivation, inspiration, whatever it is that you need at this moment? But people that you grew up around, do you recall who had an impact and helped you become the person you've become today?
Yeah, I mean, I think my biggest heroes growing up were my father and my grandfather
Yep.
because we were immigrants, and I learned from a very early stage that you need to work around the clock to really to provide for your family. So I was fortunate to witness. I mean, it would have been nice if they had more means, but I think it was better that they didn't, because I learned that you work from sunrise to sunset. You don't take sick days. You pretty much work 6 days a week most of the time, and you do whatever it takes to provide for the family. So they were really my earlier role models that I attribute my entrepreneurial and hardworking spirit to.
Thank you very much for sharing. I absolutely love it. But in terms of audiobooks, what are you listening to at the moment?
Audiobooks. I mean, right now, Discipline is Destiny by Ryan Holiday.
Yep, yep.
Love that. The Brand Called You, and I tend to listen to three at a time. And the last one is called the Compound Effect,
The
which I'm
compound
loving.
effect. Yeah. Well, you know what? We have a lot of guests on the show that talk about the compound effect, and it applies to all factors of life. So I'm pretty sure you're learning something for there. That's for sure and certain. Now, before we shift gears, Stephen, and we start looking at the core of the core, and we take a deep dive into your book, Built to Finish, you are you enjoy traveling, and I just wonder what's on your travel bucket list. Where do you want to go still?
Where do I still want to go? That's
Yeah.
interesting. We had a family trip booked to Southeast Asia. which was canceled because of COVID.
Oh,
So
yep,
even though one of my daughters and I, we went to Cambodia recently, we still haven't experienced like a larger visit, which we want to do.
yep.
I've been to Africa once to climb Kilimanjaro, of course, but I want to take the family down there just to experience, the culture and potentially go to a safari.
That's
That's on the
awesome.
bucket list.
Yes, yes.
And we still, again, I've been fortunate to be able to travel because of business, but the family and I want to go to Australia and New Zealand
Of course you do.
very much. So
Yes.
we want to get out there one of these days.
Well, look, if you come out here, Falls Creek in Victoria is somewhere to go. Sydney's obviously somewhere to go. We live in McLaren Vale in South Australia, best wine region in the world. The door is always
Sure.
open for you. So feel welcome to come
I
knock on the
appreciate
door.
that.
Look,
I will take you up on that. We love
absolutely.
wine.
Absolutely. No, I know Australia like the back of my hand by this age. So now tell me, for the sake of context, as we shift gears, tell us a little bit about your educational and professional background.
Sure. So I'm not ashamed to admit that I was a college dropout.
Yep.
My parents gave me, which I'm blessed that I received the permission to drop out of school
Yep.
because my mother, my father had hit upon some hard times and his business wasn't doing well. He actually had to declare Chapter 11 bankruptcy. So my mother said, "What is this college thing that you're doing, which will take 4 years and result?" Because she believed in, like, doctors, lawyers, more better known professions. I was majoring in business, which meant nothing to my mother.
Yep. Yep.
And my mother said to me, "Hey, I found out about this computer programming course. Why don't you go take this course instead? And they promise job placement after only 9 months." So my parents basically gave me the permission to drop university and to go to take this course for on a topic that I loved and
Yes.
pursue a career.
Yeah, that's wonderful feedback. Now, tell me a little bit about that. Your experience with binary tree. You're a tech entrepreneur, so obviously it worked.
Yeah, it definitely worked. So I mean, after after I graduated that school and I got my first job, which translated into my next job, and 3 jobs later, I said I don't want to work for anybody anymore. I want to start my own company. I think there's a lot of opportunity, and there was. This is now the early '90s, so I was brave enough to leave my job and start a business, which actually, the first 2 attempts didn't go so well, but the third attempt turned into a very successful large company.
That's great news. That pinnacle of success is kind of like getting to the peak of the mountain, isn't it? How did that make you feel when you realized that you'd achieved your one of your lifelong goals?
No, it was fantastic. Once we actually started gaining traction as a business
Yep.
and started hiring employees and, revenue grew year after year, it was a fantastic feeling. Um, for me and for my family, but most importantly, I really felt great about having my parents, making my parents proud and showing them that, the reason they left the former Soviet Union to bring us to America was actually working.
It was
That
actually
we,
working. Well,
yeah.
hats off to them. They've certainly done a great deal of work to get to you to where you are today, Matt. Stephen, tell us a little bit about the mental adventure you went on when you read The Silver Mind Control Method.
Oh my God, I love the silver mind control method. I mean, I was always a fan of meditation. I wasn't an expert in it by any means. And then when I read that book and I learned that there's so many different things that you can ask your mind to help you with, from the dreams that you want to dream, the problems that you want your dreams to solve, to envisioning and manifesting, certain outcomes with your goals, to uh, to mundane things like programming a mental alarm clock so that you wake up without one. It was incredibly intriguing, and the book teaches you how to do some of these things, but for me it led me to actually go and take the course, the
Yeah.
the 3-day course that they offer, which I can't speak highly enough about. Actually, I think I wrote a blog post about it on my website, and I highly encourage anybody that's into meditation to take this course.
Absolutely. Well, we'll be sharing details about how people can contact you as we near the end of the call. But right for now, I'm wondering, as a leader in a very successful organization, do you think the things you've done thus far, your mountaineering, your triathlons, and just your athleticism has helped you become a better leader?
Oh, sure. I mean, it's tough to speak about a boss, right? So if an employee is talking about the leader of their company, there's only, so many ways in which they can describe them. I think it helped. And again, this wasn't part of the plan, but in hindsight, I think it was genius because it really helped add so much color to like the head of the company because now people are saying, hey, my company is run by this guy that just finished Ironman. Oh, he just finished his fifth Ironman. Oh, he just finished his 10th Ironman. He just climbed Kilimanjaro. He's
Yeah,
climbing McKinley next month.
yeah.
So I think it helps add an additional layer of color to leadership, which is pretty unique.
Yeah, absolutely. This guy's going to stick with it to the end. There's no there's no
Right.
shortcutting the end to success. You've got to cut that ribbon at the end of the race for sure and certain. Now, do you think that it's important for people in life, in personal life and professional life, to have a backup plan just in case everything they planned for doesn't go to plan?
That's a great question. I mean, it goes to rephrase it. I'll say like, is it worth going all in, or should you always be hedging your bets? If I had to choose just one instead of giving the pros and cons of each, I'd say, going all in is probably your best bet because you're gonna have a completely different mindset when when failure is not an option, and you're gonna need to make something work. So I'm a big fan of going all in and doing everything humanly possible to make sure the plan gets executed the way you want it to.
You seem to have a good balance between your personal life and your goals and objectives, and I guess your professional life has all found that little bit of balance. A lot of people would argue there's no such thing as true balance, but do you think in all of this that it's important to pace yourself in each part of your life so you don't burn out?
No, I think balance is huge.
Mm.
I definitely pursued an endurance hobby greater than many people, many folks. My business career definitely required a ton out of me, but I also had a family life, and friendships to pursue as well.
Yeah.
So I always it was a continuous juggling act, right? I just needed to make sure that the family and the children were always happy, and then I allocated as much time as possible there while putting in the training hours that I needed for the races, while of course dedicating a ton of time to the business to make sure it continued to succeed. So it's a continuous juggling act, and no, it is not easy. Anybody that tells you it's easy is lying.
Is lying. As a father myself, Stephen, I wonder what am I going to leave my kids? What legacy, what learnings am I going to leave for them? What sort of lessons do you want to leave your loved ones?
Yeah, so I've actually been, I've been teaching these lessons as I went along. So I got my older daughter to do a triathlon.
Yep.
She was in the category, and there's plenty in this category of one and done.
Yep.
She did one, she checked it off. She's like,
Done.
Dad,
Thanks.
thank you very much. No thanks.
Yep.
Um, the,
Passed.
young- the the younger one went a little bit further. Right now, she's done two New York City marathons with me, and she's done a half Ironman race with me. So she's on hiatus right now, so temporary pause. She's not continuing actively, but she hasn't said that she's throwing in the towel either. So I tried to bring them up to go along a similar path.
Now, a short little funny story. My wife and I are not runners by any stretch of the imagination, but we did what's called the City to Bay Fun Run. And I
Okay.
remember it was about 40 degrees, and that's, Celsius, so it's pretty hot. And we got to the line, and I remember my legs, they stopped working. And the lady after the end of the line, when I passed the finish line, she said, "Do not lay down. Here's a Gatorade. Get up." I couldn't get up. Has that ever happened to you? I literally couldn't get up and I was freaking out. What is
Uh,
that?
yeah, I mean, I don't think I've not after a race, but shortly thereafter. I mean, once you stop moving, all this lactate acid and build up that in your joint, in your legs and in your joints, builds up, and it makes
Yes.
it really, really difficult. So it's actually quite comical. if you notice the end of a finish line for a marathon or an Ironman race, it looks like it's like the world of the living dead. It's people
I
are just
know, I
having
was one of them. I love
yeah,
it. You know, it's just that life experience, and you sharing that with you about your kids doing it. I really do appreciate it. Now, tell me, what's the Beekman Five? What's that all about?
so the Beacon Five, I mean, it sounds like a bunch of superheroes.
It does.
Um, this this computer programming course that I told you about, that my mother found out about, that she wanted me to experiment with, it was actually located. The address was 5 Beekman Street,
Ah,
and to this day, and there was like hundreds of folks that went through those courses to learn how to program in 1988. To this day, they don't know what the name of the actual computer programming course was. They just remember the address. So we just call it
the
Beekman
Beekman
5.
Five. Oh, there you go. There's a great little story. Now, when people are in that mode where they're setting new goals, I dislike with a great deal of passion the word retirement. It sort of says to me that I'm giving up on life. I'm no longer required to set goals for myself. What would you say to that?
Oh, that is probably the worst thing in the world. I mean, I don't think I will ever retire
No, me
because,
neither.
and you just gave me some really good words to put behind why, because I'm all about goal setting and trying to go after the next big thing, whatever. It doesn't have to be big, but
No.
whatever that next thing is. And retirement, again, it has a super negative connotation that you're done with goal setting, and that irks me.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to just hop in the box now. That's not for me. Now, tell me a little bit about your writing journey. What made you decide that, hey, I'm going to write Build to Finish, and where did that all come from?
Yeah, it was interesting. So, coincidentally, the two major, I mean, I think I have a lot of accomplishments, including kids, but the two big ones, right, the company sale and then finally crossing the finish line at the Ironman World Championship,
Ah,
um, they happen around 13 months apart. And when conferences started becoming active again after COVID, I went to a conference and I saw a guy by the name of Ed Viesturs, who's a world renowned mountaineer. He's done all the 7 summits as well as the highest peaks in around Mount Everest, all without supplemental oxygen. He was on stage, giving his incredible, motivational story. And I said, wait a second, I got a pretty good story. I just sold my company. It was a decent sized company, very well known in the Microsoft space. And I just finished the Ironman World Championship. I want to go tell my story. So I said, and at the end of his keynote address, he promoted his book. So I said, okay, so that's the formula. If I want to be on stage promoting my story and motivating others to set audacious goals and to go after them, I need to write a book. So that was when the idea to write a book was launched.
did you enjoy the writing experience, and what did you learn about yourself when you were writing it?
Just like anything else, it took longer than expected. It was hard. It was harder than expected. I got some assistance. But yeah, I didn't learn too much about myself other than like I didn't. There's a ton of business and how-to books. They go on for hundreds and hundreds of pages, and most people will tell you that it's basically filler. Every point that is made within each chapter can be made in a quarter of the pages that it takes up. So I didn't want to do that. I wanted to make sure that it was as concise as possible, as instructional as possible, with actionable steps after every single chapter. So it was a lot of work to make it only what I think it's like 223 pages.
Yeah.
So that was probably a surprise to see to how hard it was to make it shorter than it,
One,
it could have been.
I wonder, I struggled when I came to that point in time. I thought, is it finished? Did you go through those throes?
No, I definitely did. And I kept going through it saying, maybe I should leave some stuff out. Maybe like this is really good for the next one, for the next one, for the next one. And then I finally realized I was given this advice: make your first one as good as it possibly can be. And there's always going to be enough juice for the second one. You'll surprise yourself. So I took that advice And based on the feedback that I'm getting, it came out pretty good.
Oh, I think it has, that's for sure and certain. Is there another one inside of you? Are you writing anything else?
I'm not writing anything currently, but I do have another very, very large project that's underway, which is, well, the physical project is Mount Everest. I finally got accepted to a Mount Everest expedition.
Yes. And
So, which
I
I think,
wonder, you certainly would have to write something about that, surely.
and I set out on this journey to be on the public stage to share the story. So, which is why I wrote the book. So, I want to see how that pans out. I have super high hopes of success there. So, once I complete Everest and the public speaking circuit, I'll probably write about that.
Well, tell me, are you speaking at the moment? Tell us a little bit about those arrangements.
Yeah, so right, at super, super early stages, I've got a couple of gigs, as we call it, booked, where I'll be, sharing the story and trying my hand at motivational, inspirational speaking, which I'm super excited about, and hopefully, that leads into and turns into larger engagements in front of larger audiences. So super, super early stages, but really excited about it.
It's all going to start snowballing for you. That is no doubt in my mind. Now, you love blogging. You obviously have your own newsletter. Tell us a little bit about what's in the newsletter and how people could find it.
Sure. So my blog is on stevenpivnik.com. And I love to blog about my various adventures, whether it be a race that I'm doing, an ultra marathon, an Ironman, a mountaineering adventure. There's always, something interesting that's on the agenda because I'm kind of addicted to these types of things.
Yeah.
And I just, love to share the experience. I've been given a lot of feedback on how well I basically bring the reader to my side and participating with me in these crazy adventures. So I'm always racing, so I'll continuously, blog about that and other, interesting things that are going on in my life.
Yeah,
And
and you can
Stephen,
also be found beyond stevenpivnik.com, which we'll make sure that the links are available, Stephen. But you're also on Instagram and other places. So where else can people maybe connect with you?
so StevenPivnik.com has all my social handles.
Ah, yep.
I'm very active on LinkedIn. Instagram is at Steven.Pivnik, and Facebook as well at Built to Finish. And again, all of these handles can be found just by going to StevenPivnik.com and just looking at the footer for all of these social media handles.
Well, there you go. If you want to go learn more, go to stevenpivnik.com. I'll be making sure that the links to Stephen's handles and all the wonderful work that he's doing, including his book, Built to Finish, is available to you no matter where you see this call. You're going to find those links. And with that all being said, Stephen, this has been an absolutely wonderful call. Thank you very much for joining me on the show today.
Thank you, Rick. I had a great time.